So the Hoka Challenger ATR 7 has been redesigned from the ground up, featuring a simplified mesh upper with a soft new foam, increased stack height for a plusher feel, and a different rubber on the bottom. Do all of these changes make the ATR the best all-terrain model yet? Well, let's see. But first, I do need to let you know that Hoka did send the ATR 7 to me to review. I didn't pay for this. They're not gonna see this footage ahead of time. They're not gonna proof it, tell me what to say. I'm gonna be completely honest, just like always. Well, with that out of the way, let's talk about some stats of the Challenger ATR 7. For the stack height, we've got 31 millimeters in the rear with 26 millimeters in the front for a 5 millimeter drop. I love that drop on trail. I think that's great. 4 to 6 millimeters. For me personally, I just feel the most stable on trail. As for the weight of the ATR 7, I threw it on my scale, men's size 11, weighed in at 9.7 ounces or 275 grams. That's a pretty darn good weight for a shoe with this much stack. You actually get 2 millimeters of more stack versus the ATR 6, and this is actually lighter weight than the ATR 6. So the changes to the midsole foam definitely work. The ATR 7 fits true to size, men's size 11 for me, no issues, just like all the other Hokas, just fine. However, if you do need a wider shoe, they do sell us in a wide, which is fantastic. Oh, and also it is made of recycled and vegan materials. Hey, before we move on, if you wouldn't mind, scroll down, click the thumbs up button, give it a like. That really does help out a lot, and I would really appreciate it. Okay, well now let's talk about the upper of the ATR 7. Like I said, it is a simplified mesh upper. It's a single piece. And it is fairly breathable. It's not the most breathable Hoka out there. I did the tissue test, take a look. You can see when I put it on low, it moved a little bit and it came up, a decent amount. When I put it on high, the tissue rose a little bit more, but not at all as breathable as some of the other shoes I have tested. With that said, in the wintertime right now, it feels pretty good. It's not super cold. My toes have not been cold unless they got soaking wet, which happened on one of my runs, and then my toes were quite cold. One thing I've got to say about the ATR 7 is there is no break-in period required. These things right out of the box fit just amazingly. I threw it on my feet. I think I went for like a 15-mile run right out of the box. No issues, it's just perfect for my foot. The toe box of the ATR 7 is pretty typical for a Hoka. It's not super wide, but it's also not crazy narrow. It works for most feet, and that's what it's designed to do. But like I said, they do have a wide version, so if you have a wider foot, you probably want to check that out. Another thing to note about the toe box is there is no dynamic vamp like on the Speedgo 5 or the Mafate Speed 4. And I kind of like that personally because those tend to stretch just a little bit, and with the laces, everything where you get it locked down, it doesn't move and it stays where you want it, which I kind of like that security. Another great thing on the front is a really nice toe bumper. It's pretty aggressive, and it saved my toes quite a few times from smashing into some rocks on a pounding descent. The tongue of the ATR 7 is honestly probably one of my favorite tongues on Hokas in recent years. It's really close, almost the same or even better than the Mafate Speed 4. I love it. It just fits great. It has the perfect amount of cushioning. When you get those laces, those recycled poly laces cinched down on top, it's not going to dig into the top of your foot, cause any discomfort. It's perfect. It's really good. So excellent job, Hoka. And even better is it's gusseted on both sides, fully gusseted, so it's not going to be moving around. It's gonna help keep some of that debris out of your foot. Hoka, you nailed it. Speaking of those laces, like I just mentioned though, the lockdown is fantastic with this. I haven't yet had to do the runner's knot at all. It just fits really well. A big part of that in the back of the heel cup, the padding is really nice. It's it's kind of plush, but it feels really good and secure around the heel, just kind of hugs it nicely. I haven't had any heel slippage. The extended heel pull in the back is great as well. It helps you kind of get that shoe into the foot. And it also kind of protects your Achilles a little bit. One negative about it though, I did notice running in the snow and also on some really dry, dusty, like Colorado trails, is basically, it almost acted like a little shovel. Some of this stuff kind of came into the back of the foot just a little bit. So a gaiter would definitely be a good addition if you're gonna be running on like some really dry stuff. So moving on to the midsole of the ATR 7, it's a compression molded EVA, and you actually get 2 more millimeters of that EVA versus the ATR 6. You probably won't really be able to notice that too much because, 2 millimeters, let's face it, it's not a lot, but it is a little more. And this cushioning feels great. So it's not a super plush, pillowy type ride that some of the older Hokas were. It has a perfect amount of firmness to it, but yet the cushioning that you want and where your feet can, honestly, you feel like you can run all day. I have spent probably about 4 or 5 hours in one run on these and had no foot fatigue. They were just perfect. That cushioning is awesome. When you're bombing down a steep descent, that firmness of the cushion feels really nice and stable. It kind of protects your feet a little bit, but that cushion does also absorb some of that impact and help reduce fatigue. For an EVA foam, it has a decent amount of response to it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a super critical foam, but it feels pretty good on the trails and on the road when you want to pick up the paces. It feels pretty good. Hoka says that it's a new soft foam. They don't expound on what that means, but whatever it is though, it works and it feels great no matter the terrain. terrain. As for the durability of the ATR 7 midsole, I see a little creasing, just a very little bit going on in the midsole here. Honestly, it's probably gonna last about 350, 400 miles like most Hokas do. But yeah, it's great, it's a good ride. As for the outsole of the ATR 7, it's Hoka's proprietary rubber. They call it a Durabrasion rubber, and these are 4mm deep lugs. And Hoka says they're inspired by gravel tires. So there's a smaller, more tightly spaced lug in the center, and a larger, more aggressive lug at the perimeter designed for improved traction on any terrain. And I gotta say, in my testing, the traction of the ATR 7 has been very impressive and far exceeded my expectations. I have taken these in ankle deep snow at times, and it's been great. So if you're running in snow, not a problem with the ATR 7s. However, these have been very impressive, like I said. The only time I needed more traction was on ice on some steep descents, where I threw on my Kahtoola micro spikes. The size 11 of the Hoka Challenger ATR 7 fits just fine with a size large of the Kahtoola micro spikes. So if you need those, keep that in mind. So with that good midsole foam we just talked about and the extra stack height, you really don't feel these lugs when running on pavement. There is no rock plate in these, and running on rocks, I've been on fairly gravelly roads at times. No issues. It doesn't poke through and hurt your foot. It's been great for me, at least. As for the durability of the outsole, honestly, it's probably gonna last about the same as the midsole, probably 350, 400 miles. The weak spot is gonna be the exposed EVA right here. I am seeing a little bit of wear to the outside, but I mean, it is EVA. As for the price of the Hoka Challenger ATR 7s, it's $145 US right now, and that's a pretty decent price. Honestly, for that, you get a lot of shoe. You get a shoe that can pretty much do anything, road to trail, be commuter, dedicated trail, whatever it is, it can tackle it all. Honestly, I think the Challenger line is one of the more underrated shoes that Hoka has. I wore the Challenger ATR 3 for my first 100-mile race. I wore the Challenger ATR 5 for my next 100-mile race, and I've worn the Challenger ATR 7s now in some pretty crazy terrain with pretty good success. I actually prefer it over the Hoka Speedgoat 5. I honestly feel a little more stable in this, and I like that the toe box doesn't stretch as much, but that's for another video. But I wanna know what you think. Have you tried the Hoka Challenger ATR 7? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's stable? Do you like the outsole, the midsole, the upper? Let everybody know below in the comments, because I'm sure everyone would really appreciate knowing your thoughts. Well, that is gonna do it for the Hoka Challenger ATR 7 review. If you found it helpful, please remember to give it a thumbs up. That does help out a lot. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and take a look at the Hoka Mafate Speed 4 video on your screen, and then I'll throw a playlist of some other Hoka shoes on this side as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Hoka for sending the shoes. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you on the next one.
Honestly, I was a little worried they wouldn't fit over the Hokas, but they fit just fine. Size large in the Kahtoola micro spikes, fits a size 11 Hoka Challenger ATR 7 just fine.